Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. You know, dealing with an HOA is never fun, but I thought it would be bearable. Boy, was I wrong. It is even worse when they try to start messing with my service animal. Before I get into it, let me give you guys a little background information about myself. I am an Army veteran who has some disabilities as a result of my service in the Army. While this can be unfortunate, having a service dog has really made living with these disabilities so much easier. I will forever be grateful to not just service animals, but to the people that spend the time to train and certify them. It makes me sad thinking about people with disabilities that struggle but could really use a service animal. With that being said, I am fairly sure it is clear how much I love and respect my own service dog, Ava. Ava has been my service dog for about 2 years now, and the bond we have is unbreakable. So basically, in the HOA I live in, only certain breeds of dogs were allowed. Because Ava is a German Shepherd and considered an aggressive breed, they tried to fight me when I brought her in. But because of where I live, state law says that they cannot deny me the right to my service dog, regardless of her breed. When I provided documentation to prove she was a service dog and the tasks that she is trained to do, most of the HOA members were okay with this. However, one of them, we will call her Karen, has been a pain in my ass ever since I got her. I can recall about a year ago, Karen tried to fine me because I was taking my dog out in the morning to go potty, and she tried to fine me for not having the dog's service animal vest on. Keep in mind, my dog was not actively working at this point. It was only 7 a.m. in the morning, and I was taking her out to use the restroom. Here's how part of that conversation went. Karen, I do not care if she is not working. No one else is allowed to have that breed, so she has to be marked as a service dog at all times. Me. Lady, that makes no sense. Marked? Everyone knows she is a service dog. The vest is to let everyone know she is certified and is actively working. Karen. Well, then I will write you a fine since you think you are above the rules. Me. I absolutely do not think I am above the rules. But I am not breaking any rules and you are harassing me. Go ahead and write that ticket or fine or whatever. I am sure the HOA president will love to hear about you harassing tenants. Karen was not too happy with that and stomped away angrily. I never got a fine for that incident. Karen kept trying to fine me for other things after that, but a majority of them were phony, and I ended up not having to pay. I knew that Karen was targeting me specifically because none of the other HOA members were bothering me. I always passed inspections, etc. It made me wonder why Karen hated me so much. Was it really just because of a dog? I never did anything, unprovoked, to piss her off, so the whole situation was simply weird. I did my best to just mind my own business and avoid her. After all, dealing with the HOA could be tiring, but dealing with an HOA Karen was exhausting. Flash forward to earlier this year, I was getting ready to go on a morning walk. Keep in mind that it was not 7 a.m., but it was still 9 a.m., so it was early enough. Ava had her service dog vest on as we were walking around the neighborhood, and I had been having some blood pressure issues lately. Karen must have been watching me, I swear to God, because we were probably 50 feet from my house when she pulled up beside me on her bike. Karen, why are you walking that thing so early? I was obviously confused by her statement and already annoyed that she was harassing me when I was just minding my own business. I tried to ignore her and continued walking with Ava by my side. Unfortunately, Karen did not have this. She kept taunting me and even got closer and closer to me. My dog Ava started getting distracted with all the ruckus Karen was making, and if you know anything about service dogs, it is that distracting a service dog can be deathly. Me. Can you back off? I have not bothered you and you are harassing me. I will call the police officers on you. How is that going to look for your HOA? Karen. Harassing you? You're the one harassing the neighborhood with that ugly dog of yours. We don't even allow other people to have these types of dogs. Why are you special? Besides, you're not supposed to walk him outside. Me. Where the hell am I supposed to walk him then? On the moon? Just leave me the duck alone. And what happened next completely and utterly shocked me. Karen ran into my dog on purpose with her bike. My dog yelped out in pain, and I immediately fell to the ground to make sure she was okay. Luckily, one of the neighbor's teens was out and about and saw the whole thing, and while Karen tried to run away on her bike, the neighborhood tackled her to the ground. I immediately called the police while Karen was kicking and screaming underneath the neighbor who had her pinned to the ground. Me. What is actually wrong with you? Animal abuse to a service dog? You're a sick individual. Karen. I do not know what you are talking about. It was an accident. The neighbor. Yes, right. I saw you with my own eyes. He or his dog never bothered anyone. What is the matter with you? Luckily, the house this happened in front of, they had video footage from their Ring security camera. So while she obviously lied to the police, I was able to prove that I was telling the truth with the video footage. Apparently, Karen really did not like big dogs, which to some degree I understand, but being physical against a dog who did nothing to you is absolutely outrageous, and I was not about to tolerate it. I did end up taking Ava to the vet to make sure she was okay, but luckily she just suffered some bruised ribs and a small cut on her side. Karen was fined $1,000 for the ordeal, and I was surprised when she actually paid for it. But instead of keeping it for myself, I actually donated to an organization that trains service dogs for people like me in need. In addition, she was facing some even bigger charges for attacking a service dog, which is a serious offense here. Moral of the story: do not ever put your hands or bike on an animal. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This happened a few years ago when I was in high school. I told some of my friends about it, and they said I should post it here. Sorry about the formatting, phones suck. A few years back, this guy moved into a duplex next door to my family with his wife and 2 kids. His wife was a quiet, well-mannered woman, and their 2 kids were super sweet. This guy, however, was an alcoholic dirtbag who made it a point of being an obnoxious, rude asshat. Over the course of the few years he lived in our neighborhood, he bought and subsequently neglected a dog until it died of exposure. He regularly did business with addicts out of his home. 2 of his clients got arrested outside his home for possession of meth and for child neglect because their young son was left buried under a pile of clothes and trash. On multiple occasions, he would get trashed and bring home women while his wife and kids were visiting relatives in Texas. Eventually, his alcoholism started to spiral out of control, and he started getting into more and more shouting matches with his wife. My family would stay out of it and actively avoid interfering. There was never any physical violence, and we learned from his wife that when other people got involved, he would get even worse. For the sake of her and the kids' well-being, we left them alone. There were still instances, however, where we would get pulled into things. This epic bit of revenge came as a result of one such instance. My parents, 2 brothers, and I had just gotten back from a family gathering, and we were pretty drained from dealing with relatives all day. We pulled in and started unloading all the food from the back of the car when the neighbor's wife and the kids came outside. We thought nothing of it until the dickbag neighbor came screeching out the front door, hurling abuse at his wife and barely able to string coherent sentences together in his drunken rage. His wife, not wanting to alarm the neighborhood, asked him to stop yelling because the neighbors, my family, were outside. In his stupor, he came to the conclusion that because this fight was happening on his property, it was illegal for us to listen to it. He turned and started screaming at my father, calling him a fat ass and other terrible names. He then proceeded to walk to the edge of the property line and threatened to kick my dad's ass. To paint you a picture of my dad, he is about 280 pounds of pure duck-you, and doesn't put up with people treating him like crap. My dad gave his concealed handgun to my mom, calmly walked out to the property line, and looked the neighbor dead in the eye. He then gave the neighbor a choice: walk away or persist and face the consequences of his actions. The neighbor, being a drunken crap biscuit, decided to scream at my father, saying dumb crap like, "Hit me, you fat bastard, and I will duck you up." Taking that as the answer, my dad looked over at the neighbor's mortified wife and said, "I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but he has been cheating on you." She started to cry, and the neighbor somehow turned redder than he had been mere moments before. His wife quickly put the traumatized children in the car and sped off, all while her husband begged her to let him explain. After she drove off, he went inside, and we didn't hear a peep out of him the rest of the night. In the months following this incident, we only saw his wife there a couple of times. In the end, she left his ass with most of what he owned, including his SUV that he was super proud of. That is all there was to it, and the moral of the story is, don't talk crap to your neighbors, or they will ruin your marriage. Hope you all enjoyed. The next one is a petty revenge story. Have you ever worked with someone whom you immediately knew was really something special? I've had a few opportunities to work with people like this, and my first thought is, I want to help this person get wherever it is they're going. I worked for a nonprofit for a while after retiring from the Army. On my first day on the job, one of my peers on the leadership team pulled me aside and warned me about one of the guys on my team, Jane. You'll have to keep a close eye on Willie. He's low effort, takes a lot of hand-holding, rubs people the wrong way, and honestly, we're considering firing him. Me. Thanks for the heads up. You never know what you're getting into at a new position, so I appreciate having the info. Duck, what have I walked into? But then I started working closely with Willie and made some discoveries. Sure, Willie was an introvert, kept to himself, and could be a touch socially awkward, but he knew his job inside and out. He managed my department's logistics requirements precisely. We always had what we needed, but never too much excess static stock on hand. He found innovative ways to work with our community partners. He built new initiatives that capitalized on existing resources without incurring additional costs, a very important skill to have in a nonprofit. He impressed donors so much that he actually convinced them to contribute significant sums in support of his additional duty department. And he wasn't even part of the fundraising team. Willie was a quiet rock star, and I quickly realized how lucky I was to have him. Despite all this, the rest of the regional leadership team seemed to have it in for him. I found out later what it was that set them off. Willie had made an offhand comment to Jane about a year before I joined. Nothing sexist or bad, just a casual observation about a physical aspect of the office space that Jane interpreted poorly. She shared it with other leaders in the organization. They decided that the comment made their teeth itch, and it became a snowball that quickly rolled over Willie's reputation. The comment was relayed to me by a third party a few months after my arrival. I went and talked to Willie about it directly. I wanted to get his take. Our discussion revealed that it was totally innocuous, but misinterpretation had caused a misunderstanding, and the damage was done. Rather than asking questions of Willie to clarify, they assumed a bunch of crap and ran with it. The stage was set, and Willie had realized that he didn't have a future at our location. Leadership had made up their minds about him and were actively blocking his options when they learned about any moves he was trying to make. I knew of at least 3 instances where they torpedoed his chances for interviews at other nearby locations in the organization, tripping him before he even got out of the gate. Willie knew that if he was going to advance, it was going to be somewhere else. He started looking for new work, and he eventually found something at another branch of our organization in a different state. He kept it very quiet, got the interview, and the other region was assessing the different candidates. The only other person in our region who knew about it was me, and that was only because I'd spent months gaining Willie's trust. He knew he could confide in me, and I wouldn't crap on him. Around that time, Jane hit me up again about Willie. Jane, I'm amazed by the changes in Willie since you came on board. You've really done a lot to mentor him and get him up to his full potential. Me, I have done a lot of work where Willie is concerned. Some of it was helping him with professional development, but most of it has been focused on shifting the leadership team's perspective. He's really not that different from when I arrived, but as you just indicated, your perception of him has definitely changed. I've put a lot of effort into just letting him shine, giving him credit for the good things he does, and staying out of his way. He didn't need micromanagement. He needed room to run. Every time he achieved something, I made a point of highlighting his success and the benefit it brought to our organization. The work I did wasn't on him, it was on you. Jane. Silent. Back to Willie. I asked if he wanted me to go to bat for him in the hiring process with the other region. He said he'd appreciate the help, so I called the manager at the other location and told her, I don't want to lose Willie, but all the reasons why I want him to stay here are the same reasons why you need him there. The problem is, if Willie stays here, the organization is going to lose him because they won't promote him. I'd rather have him stay with the organization in a different place than lose his commitment and skills entirely. She hired him. Of course, it was all him. Skills, experience, interview. She knew she was getting someone amazing. My recommendation was just icing on the cake, made it easier for her to decide what she already knew. Willie's taste of sweet, sweet revenge came when the leadership team had to eat crow as they congratulated him on his move. Willie knew this team of leaders had put a lot of effort into making sure he'd never advance. Some of their congratulations were less than genuine, including Jane's. The cherry on top was that the pay and position at the new job was half a step above mine and the rest of the leadership team. That's right. He moved on, he moved up, and he outranked us all. A most excellent F.U. to the folks who had stood in his way. The next one is an entitled people story. 5+ years ago, I worked in an office with a coworker, EC, who always one-upped you. If you had good news, he had better news. If you had a crappy weekend, it was nothing compared to his. A coworker came in looking distraught, and we finally coaxed it out of her that her mom was recently diagnosed with malignant breast cancer. EC overheard, and suddenly his dad was diagnosed with penile cancer and had a heart attack on the same day. If looks could have killed, he would have melted through the floor. A bunch of people went to HR after that, but in true HR style, he was too important. We couldn't prove it was false, blah blah blah. Nothing ever happened. We knew he was full of it, and there was no way half the stuff he said was true, but it wore you down. About 5 months later, we were talking about our weekends on Monday. I casually mentioned that my nephew took state in both grade and weight in a recent wrestling tournament. Who should overhear but EC? He swoops in and says, "My nephew has plenty of wrestling medals. I bet he's not as good as mine. What's his name? I want to pull up his ranking." I gave him the name because EC had jumped in before I could tell my other co-workers that he's been nationally ranked since he was 6, both in grade and weight class. I also didn't say that he had recently accepted a prestigious invitation to wrestle for an international wrestling club, which had produced several Olympians. Winning state was a pre-qualifier for the program, but everyone knew he would get it done. I didn't know they posted stats for 4th graders online, but sure enough, he pulled him up on the office computer. It only took a minute before he closed the window and tried to change the subject. A small crowd had gathered at this point, so I grabbed his keyboard, and with Ctrl-Shift-T, I promptly reopened the window. I don't know enough about wrestling stats to tell you how good he was, but others apparently did and were freaking out about his stats. I knew he was good, but apparently he was a savant or something. Lest we forget, people then started asking about EC's nephew and his stats. EC was floundering and trying his best to backpedal, but no one would let him. We searched with his last name and got no one who it could be. EC then started saying it was his nephew on the other side. EC had bragged about being related to the governor, so we knew what name to search, and still no one in the right age range to be his nephew. Suddenly EC yelled that he was in 2nd grade, so it wasn't online. My nephew's stats were online from 1st grade, so that was BS. Next came, he lives in another state, but that didn't matter as he was quickly shown wrestlers from other states, clubs, leagues, and even genders. EC's face was turning every shade of red before he finally stormed away, yelling something about harassment and going to HR. HR did reach out, but we pointed out the blatant hypocrisy when others filed complaints about him. A strongly worded email about unity, being a team player, and respect in the workplace was sent around. Everyone ignored it. I stayed there another 10 or so months before I moved. EC still tried to insert himself into conversations and one-up everyone, but all it took was someone saying, "How did your nephew do in wrestling this weekend?" And he shut up. The next one is an entitled parent story. I am currently pregnant with my first child, and both my mom and stepdad have been terrible to me and my partner the entire time. They told us we would be unfit parents because we aren't married yet. Legitimately screamed at my partner for knocking up their little girl, even though we planned the pregnancy. They would call him every day and harass him, showing up at his work, trying to convince him to leave me so I would have no choice but to move back in with them. It got worse as time went on. I finally decided to cut contact with them. Having a child can already be a stressful time, and having them around to make it worse was not something I was okay with. My partner and I have gone through a lot of family drama in the past couple of years, and having this baby has been one of the most exciting things for us. If my parents can't be nice to my partner, then they don't get to see our baby. Plus, they are the kind of people who don't wear masks in public and actively choose to be in large gatherings with no social distancing, so them seeing a newborn is out of the question. One day I sent my mom a very detailed email explaining why she is not allowed to be a part of my life anymore and will not be seeing her grandchild. To make things even better, I also mentioned that we will be moving across the country shortly after she is born to be closer to other family members. So, not only is she cut off, but we are literally moving far away and never coming back. She responds by showing up at our house at 11 p.m., screaming outside our door about how it is her baby and she deserves to be there for it. I tell her to go away, and eventually she leaves. Months go by, and she will randomly text me, asking about technical problems with her Wi-Fi router or something and needing help. Little things like that don't mean much to me, and I sent her the information she needed. My cousin also had a virtual baby shower and accidentally sent my invitation to my mom's house, so my mom came by to give it to me. Things slowly came to a point where we were fairly amicable with each other, but I still stood my ground about our boundaries and nothing else had changed. She knew this. Then she sends me a video today that blew my mind. She redecorated her entire guest room to be a nursery. Crib, changing table, $400 worth of newborn clothes, toy chest, stroller, a car seat for her car, and the list goes on. In the video, she is in tears saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe my baby is going to be here soon. This is where she will sleep, where I will change her little diapers. These will be her toys. Is she psychotic? Her baby? Sleeping and living at her house? What? So I call her immediately and reiterate that we are still moving across the country soon, and that she will have no contact with the baby before that. Her response? Oh, okay, we will see about that. I'm genuinely confused. What part of you will have no contact with this baby does she not understand or think will change in the next few weeks when she is born? Is she planning on stealing her from us? I am at a loss for words. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.